Alright, in this session we're going to take a look at using cuts and fades to start to clean your mix up a little bit. There's going to be noise on these tracks, unwanted noise, and cutting and fading things out and fading things in. It's going to be a nice way of cleaning things up in your mix so that noise doesn't build up and you have, lots of excess sounds and noise in your mix that can contribute to messy mixes and things being overloaded and amounting to general noise floor and clipping and things like that. So we're going to take a look at the hi-hat for a start here on this track, and then we'll move to a vocal a bit later on. So this hi-hat track here is full of both open hi-hats, closed hi-hats, but what you'll often find in drum multi-tracks like this is that each one of these channels has bleed from all over the kit. Okay, that's one of the issues we have when recording a drum set, is we've got all these multiple microphones around the place, and unless we take each element of that kit and record them singularly in an isolated room, you're going to have bleed in these microphones from other elements of the drum set. So we do our best to clean them up through means of cutting, fading, noise gates, removing silence, all sorts of different editing tools. Today we're going to look at cutting and fading. So the hi-hats right here, well, let's take a listen to this first part, because there's no closed hi-hats or open hi-hats. It comes straight in with the crash, so we're going to look at getting rid of that, and I'll show you some tools as to how we can do that. Let's have a quick listen here. Alright, cool, so straight away it's coming in with the crash. You can hear the kick and the snare drum, all unwanted things on this hi-hat track. So there's a couple of things we can do. We can hover at the bottom left of the track here, and you'll see like a square bracket appear. You can click and drag this and move it across, and it'll of course erase or take away information here. These transients will be gone. So if we're playing back, we're not going to hear anything. That's great. We're going to take away part of the waveform here. So we can do this, and this is quite helpful at the beginning of editing some audio like this. If this first part, there's nothing here you need, so you can scan across and think, oh, okay, my hi-hats don't come in till like bar 17, then I can bring the audio way up to here. So let's have a quick listen and find where the hi-hats start. Alright, cool. So it looks like right here, bar 12, beat 2, there's our first hi-hat, a nice closed hi-hat we hear coming in. So everything up to them, this can go. So, we're not using any cut tools yet or anything like that. I'm just using the bracket at the bottom left to pull our audio across to get rid of that information. So it's just going to start on that first hi-hat. There it is. Bar 12, beat 2-ish, just after beat 2. So I can use this bracket here at the bottom left of the audio to drag across just to where the hi-hat starts. Trouble is though, you want to avoid pops and clicks and things like that in your mix. So with this coming straight in, you're going to have some, popping. The audio is going to come straight in. So this is where we need to use our fade tool. So our fade tool right up here, we've got our left click and our right click. Okay, so we can use a secondary click here in this right menu. So on here we have the pointer tool, pencil tool, scissors tool, which we'll use a bit later, and the fade tool down here as well. So we've got the fade tool is the one we're going to use right now in this session. So if I click on this, now if I hold the command on my keyboard, it'll swap to this secondary tool here, and you can see it's changed to a little fade icon. Okay, anything else I swap this to, like scissors tool, it's going to give me some scissors, and I can cut the audio like this. And let's use the fade tool. So let's bring this down. So the beginning right here, I got the closed hi-hat coming in. So if I hold the command tool, I'm just zooming in up here. I've got the across the y-axis and the x-axis zoom here. So if I come to this closed hi-hat, if I hold the command key, I'm going to change this fade tool. Now I want to take it, if I click from where that transient starts and swipe left beyond the audio, if I keep it within the audio and I let go, nothing happens. Okay, it needs to go beyond so it knows where the marker starts. I get this great fade here. Now there's a couple of things we can do with this. If I hold the command key at the top, there's a little node that appears which tells you how far across you want the fade to, to be in action until. That's one thing. So I want it to start pretty much when that closed hi-hat transient starts. And if I click and drag around the middle, I can change pretty much the attack of how this fade starts. If it's way up here, you can see it's got like a slower attack, and then it brings in. So this is the audio that's going. If I drag it down this way, there's a much faster attack coming in. Okay, it's going to get rid of all this noise here. Here's my fade coming in, and with that node aligned pretty much just where that transient starts, it's going to be a nice quick attack, which is what I kind of want for, a closed hi-hat which has pretty fast attack to it. Okay, so there's my fade that I've just brought in. I can zoom in nice here. So there's a slower attack. Okay, it's going to keep all this information here and just fade it in right until that transient starts. Or if I can do a quicker attack, just so it brings right up to the hi-hat transient here. So if I bring this back, it should come in pretty nice and clean. Great. We can obviously hear the snare drum there and the kick drum. The thing is though, on that hit with the snare drum, it's on the same beat as that hi-hat. So there's other methods of getting rid of that through EQ, which we'll cover in another session. So don't worry about cutting out other things like that just now. If they're on the same beat, there's other methods of surgically taking those out. Okay, this is just fading in at that transient. So let's go across now, and we're going to try to find when these hi-hats end or maybe change, and we'll use the cut tool to bring that out as well. Alright, cool. So we're back to the crashes again. Now we're in the middle of the audio. So dragging your audio, the bottom left isn't really going to cut it this time. So we're going to use the scissors tool or trim at Playhead tool, which either one of those will do, and I'll show you how to do those. So let's find where those crashes begin. Alright, cool. That looks like our last hi-hat here on bar 21 on here. Great, cool. So we've got a kick drum starting just here, so we can get rid of it from here. There's a couple of ways. On my secondary tool, I can go to scissors tool, hold the command key, cut right there on the playhead, and we got our cut. And what I can do now is I can just shift this audio to the right a little bit, select my fade tool, zoom in just to where that hi-hat finishes. So let's hear that. There's a little kick drum there as well, so I can just grab this audio to pull that across. Let's have a closer look. And if I just grab my command on the keyboard, I see my little fade icon. I click and drag that to the right past the audio, and I can see my fade tool is in there. Again, I can change where the node is. Okay, so that's the marker, the beginning of the transient here is that closed hi-hat. Okay, that fade pretty much did it quite nicely anyway. Okay, it's not got that much decay on it really. It's a closed hi-hat, so the attack and release on that particular instrument element of the drum set there is going to be quite short. So I can bring it down for like a quicker release or a slower release this way. It's all up to you. So I'm just clicking in kind of like the midway here of the fade tool, pushing up and down and changing like the speed of the release here. So I have a pretty quick release, but make sure I keep the integrity of the hi-hat hit right here. Nice. Okay. So the other way is to cut at playhead or trim at playhead. I'm just going to undo this a bunch of times so my audio is back together. So I've just used the scissors tool as a secondary tool, held the command key and cut. Alternatively, I just find the playhead, I move this little guy to where I want it to be, and then I just hold command T and it will cut just like that. So if you've got like the fade tool out, this can be quite useful if say like changing to my my scissors tool, but I tend to keep my left on the pointer tool anyway, just to sort of jump around the mix. But if I keep this on the fade tool, then I could just use command T to quickly cut that, shift things around, fade, let's get rid of that kick drum there and put it in just like that. That's pretty much it. Okay, so you'll just repeat that same process by searching along for the closed hi-hats, open hi-hats, keeping those on this hi-hat track. and cutting out the rest of the noise. So here it is. I've gotten rid of the first part. I've made a cut and a fade here. So I've got these nice closed hi-hats. I've got the kick drum and the snare drum on every one of those eighth notes there, so I can use some surgical EQ to take out some of those fundamental frequencies of those elements of the kit to clean it up a little bit. We'll do that in another session, or give that a go if you know how to. This is just cutting and fading the audio. So this is a process you want to repeat for your entire mix. Really go to the kick drum, the snare drum. If there's parts in there that you don't want, trim out the beginning of the audio. There might be some just general noise floory sounds here, mechanical noises and other things like that, people breathing or coughing you might find, and cut those out, because with all these things in, it's just going to sort of build up in your mix. And if you've kept all these all the noise in on all your different tracks, it's just going to build up on your master out, and you're going to have this noise floor, which can be undesirable. Some people might find them aesthetically pleasing to have mechanical noises and general ambience of rooms in there, which just use carefully and think about those decisions when you are making edits. Sometimes you want to keep them in, but things like sneezes, coughs, stool squeaks, instrument bleeds from other elements of the kit here, that generally the kind of the top things you want to start getting rid of. Let's take a look at the vocal. So I think I had a look at the chorus vocal. Let's solo this. I got my hi-hats off, and I think there's just like some breathing and some general noises just coming up to this. Now I had a listen to this, and the takes are pretty clean. So I think there's been a little bit of pre-production on there where they've either turned off the recording, or they've taken out these before they've bounced these multi-tracks down and sent them to us, because there's pretty much nothing going on over here. But traditionally, if you've recorded in the studio and the vocalist is just singing right here and right here, they might be mumbling to themselves, coughing, just a heavy breathing, that kind of thing, warming up before they do their vocal. And we can get rid of that. So again, I can use the bracket here to pull these in on either side to start there. Go to the middle of the vocal, Command T to cut a playhead, shift these across a little bit. If I take a little listen, because I'm pretty sure I heard something here earlier, so let's take a listen here, just so we know that this is worth doing. Yeah, right there you probably heard some of the track bleeding through as well, which is a huge thing. If you've got a vocalist or a guitar player, any musician and performer on the track, really, if they've got some headphones in, and if they're open back headphones, you're going to get click, bleed, or the rest of the track bleeding through, which can harm your mix a little bit. That stuff, starts to fold back and builds up lots of noise. So let's hear that again. I want to turn your speakers or headphones up just a little bit to hear that, but it is there. So we're going to get rid of all that, and let's have a close look at where that vocal comes in. Now it's argued about vocal breaths, whether or not people keep them in or take them out. It can add to a song, but sometimes, if there's like heavy breathing or breathing styles and sounds that are undesirable, you can take them out, but just up to you really. Maybe leave some in so it doesn't sound so robotic and unnatural, like people need to breathe, and that's a human element that can sound really nice in a mix. But let's just hear this where it's at. Okay, there's a huge breath there, but what we can do is I can just make sure that track's gone at least. Okay, so we just got the breath there. Let's bring in this fade, but we could have like a slower attack, so the breath sounds a bit more natural coming in. Maybe a quicker, actually, just get rid of some more of that. Great. Okay, so the breath's in there, which might add to the performance. You might want to take it out later, but we've kept it in there enough, but not so. When you start to compress the vocal, the breath is way up there as well. We've taken a good amount of that out, but kept some in for like that human vocal element, right? Cool. Okay, so that's just an example on the vocal as well. So go ahead, have a look at your mixes. Pull things out that you don't need to. Keep an eye out for track bleed, things like that. Hands on guitars that are squeaking up and down the strings that are undesirable, that kind of thing. Amp hum, anything that you don't want in your mix, these tools will help you. Okay, cutting at playhead, using that fade tool to fade things in and out so you avoid clicks and pops right when the transient or the tracks end. And that's pretty much it. All right, cuts and fades.